Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Steve Rowell here. Today is Tuesday, September the 5th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia is at 12 midnight. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for yet another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I am pleased and proud to announce to everyone that Steve Rowell is adding a second day to his schedule here on LOA Today, and he's going to be my ongoing morning host on Tuesday mornings for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure how long it'll be. I never know when I bring somebody new on, but we find that out as we go along, right, Steve?
Well, that's it. We keep coming up with new things to discuss and talk about. So I'm sure we'll keep going as long as that keeps happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like your T-shirt. I can't see what it says entirely, but what's your T-shirt say?
Um, I've no idea. To be honest, I've never even.
Okay.
Um,
You just grab
top,
whatever's in the
top,
closet and put it on.
Copper label Japan, super dry.
All right.
Means absolutely nothing.
Well, whatever it is, it looks like you're ready for it. I don't know what it is, but that's okay. So how you doing? I mean, we haven't talked in a few days. How are things going? Are you well?
Yeah, well, things are picking up coaching wise. I'm taking on a lot more new clients now, and they're getting good results, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's all starting to pick up. And again, thanks to this show, really, and being able to put myself out there a little bit more than I would have ordinarily been able to do. So I'm grateful for that, definitely.
Oh, welcome. We're glad to have you for sure. So this is going to be a Q&A, and I see people are starting to queue into the live stream section of the Facebook page on LOA Today. I don't see any questions yet, so I think we're probably going to be coming up with our own topic and questions to address. But I mean, we can do that, Steve. We're good at this kind of thing. So, um,
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring something up today
sure.
that I've been playing with and working with
Right.
over the last sort of week or so. So I've been looking at energy and what energy is and how we can manipulate that. So I wanted to get your take on energy and energy states and being able to transmute and transform energy into different realities um, by using your thought patterns and feelings and the law of attraction in effect. So I just wanted to get your take on that and what your thoughts were
Sure.
around that. Well,
Yeah. Well, actually, that's something that I talk about a lot on Friday afternoons with Linda Armstrong, because
yeah,
literally she is an energy coach. That's the way she builds herself, and she's remarkable where the whole topic is concerned. Lately, she's been leading us in a series of meditations, and they've been really interesting. I have a mixed history myself with guided meditations, but hers are very good. I'm actually successfully visualizing stuff, and I'm
yeah,
feeling energy coming through. I'm experiencing it. It's like this is cool. This is good stuff. I like
yeah.
this. um,
It,
I'm not quite sure where you want to go with the question, but I can tell you in general, I do believe very strongly now, and this is big change for me compared to say, I don't know, 10 to 15 years ago. Big change for me to feel like and to say, yes, we are all connected. Yes, we can experience that connection. Yes, we can send messages. Yes, we can reinforce each other. Yes, we can help each other energetically. I wouldn't have said that 15 years ago. I totally believe it now.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome because I mean I do well. I work with different groups of people, and I think when you're especially because yesterday, yeah, yesterday was the new moon as well, wasn't it?
I
So
believe yes.
yeah, well, so it, I'm working with a group of people at the moment and we're manifesting money and other things and business dealings and all sorts of other things together as a group of people. So we come together generally once a week, sometimes twice a week to have a conversation, but also we'll have a joint intention setting, which we do on the new moon.
Okay.
And so we'll all sit down and we'll go through a process of setting our intentions for the group so we can all put the same amount of energy out into the universe at the same time, which is so powerful because you can literally feel the energy from everybody all at the same time, and it's I say it's strange because I wouldn't have believed this 6 years ago either,
Yeah.
that everybody can hold a thought and an intention
Mm.
and can have an impact that you can see and feel in your reality within a matter of hours. It's things start to happen because of all this energy that's gone out there,
Mm.
and I find, sorry, I've got a cold today, um,
Oh.
and you'll find, or I find that I tend to use that now when I'm going through my daily routine. So you can inadvertently not use, that's probably the wrong word, tap into other people's energy that
Mm.
don't necessarily, you're not necessarily personally connected with and wouldn't have a conversation with on this level. But when I'm out in daily life wanting to create certain outcomes for me, for example, with cars, if I'm buying a car or a house or various other things, you'll be speaking to estate agents,
Right.
you'll be speaking to car salesmen. All these people, you can get involved in that process of manifesting what you want because they want you to buy the car, don't they? They want you to buy the
Absolutely.
house. So
Absolutely.
you can tap into their energy and they'll be going on that journey with you. So their energy is going off into the universe and pulling back what you want as well and giving you the set of
Right.
circumstances, people, places, and things to bring that into fruition for you. I just wanted to get your take on that as well because that's
I
something.
agree too. One of my favorite things to point out is that law of attraction is not just about the magic stuff. By the
No,
magic stuff, I mean the stuff seems to appear out of nowhere through the law of attraction. We all go, ooh, that's really exciting. Whoa, how did he do that? But actually, also, when I pick something up, I'm attracting that.
yeah,
It's
that's,
just
yeah,
the much more mundane ones, so we kind of dismiss that. Oh, well, he just picked that one up. That doesn't count. Well, yeah, actually, it does count. We attract everything in our lives, but we get so wrapped up in the magic that we say, well, this other stuff, I mean, that doesn't really count. That's like cheating. No, it's not. We attracted all of it. It's all attracted. It's kind of like saying, well, yeah, I mean, the law of gravity is true, but the magic part is when, you throw something off of a high place and it falls to earth faster and faster and faster and faster. Which I reply, no, the magic is that everything stays on the ground. What are you talking about?
yeah. It's not floating, it's not disappearing off into the yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that's it. I
of
think
course, the real estate agents and the car dealers and so forth are helping us energetically. The two are inseparable. And
yeah,
actually, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we try to separate them and say, well, it's really not the same thing. Actually, yeah, it is the same thing.
that's it. Because like you said earlier, everything is energetically connected. Whether it's a
Yeah.
tree outside, this wall that's made out of brick and plaster and concrete, and me, I'm vibrating with that wall. I'm vibrating with the phone that I'm speaking to you on. I'm vibrating with the desk here. Everything is moving, and I'm part of that because our senses only see sort of a small amount. Well, light-wise, we see about that much of the light spectrum, don't we? When it's about this
Right.
big,
Exactly.
and sound exactly the same. Dogs can hear sounds that we can't. So there's all this vibration going on in in our outer world, as it were, that and the majority of it we can't perceive, but
And
actually
there's
we can.
even a piece of it, I think there's a piece of it that we haven't even detected yet.
Oh yeah, there will be. Yeah,
I mean, that's what Einstein was talking about when he was giving out his theories of special and general relativity. Those theories tied in the idea that space is not empty, that it's actually consistent of energy. And this is a key portion of his theory, a portion that often gets dismissed. But I think it's probably the most important piece of all because most of that energy, our science does not yet know how to detect. Like you said, we can detect the various ranges of light, both visible light and invisible, from infrared out to ultraviolet. But I'm not convinced that that accounts for all of the energy because, like Einstein said, open space is full of energy. Is it all light energy? I don't think so. I mean, there's a whole lot of space that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of light in it. So that means it's something else. There's another kind of energy going on here. And I think it's actually source energy.
It's awesome, isn't it? Because you've got
Yes.
all this stuff that you can tap into. Because if you think about it, your emotions, when I have a thought that then creates an emotion, I can feel that physically in my body. So my thought has got to have some sort of energetic um, substance to it to be able to make my body feel a certain way and release those chemicals and things that make the hair stand on end when I'm excited. All these other things that happen to my body from different emotions that come up. So there's got to be energy involved in my thoughts, which then goes off to wherever. It doesn't just stop at me, does it? It can't. It's impossible because energy changes,
Right.
moves, and morphs into different things all the time. And matter in its entirety is basically empty space full of energy. That's it.
Hmm.
So when you think about it like that from a quantum physics side of things, it's mind blowing, but it's also if you simplify it, it makes perfect sense that we, with our conscious emotions and thoughts, can then disturb and interrupt what turns up in physical matter, because physical matter is pure energy.
Hmm.
So it's got to. There's no way that you can dismiss that that's a fact, because it's a scientific fact that everything's made of energy. We are. Our thoughts are, because you can feel them, and the emotions are. So why can't we just create whatever?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, E does equal mc squared. Einstein taught us that too. The E is energy, the M is mass or matter.
Yeah.
So energy equals mass times the square of the speed of light. That's pretty much saying they're the same thing. It's just
Oh,
there's just this
yeah.
constant that's the only difference mathematically between them. So yeah, they're the
Like,
same thing.
so like I say, it's nothing. It's not magic. It's science. As far as I'm concerned, it's science, and which is why, because that is because I'm a scientist at heart anyway. I studied science at university, so
Oh, you did.
yeah, I did, yeah. So the I wouldn't believe. I don't believe in magic as a woohoo aha magic. If I can't put a tangible reason together for something happening, then I won't believe it because I've got an analytical mind.
Hmm.
So reading books about quantum physics and all these other things, it's just obvious to me now that this stuff's real. So yeah. Anyway, we've gone off on a
I will say one thing that I don't mean to contradict you. I'll just say I think of it a little bit differently. I actually do believe in magic.
yeah.
Magic there are a number of different ways to define what magic is. And one of the most interesting ones, I think, is the one that says magic is anything that science has not yet been able to prove, but we know is true anyway.
Yeah, if you put it that way.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But even more than that, I think the real meaning of magic is wonder.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
because you
we have
still,
this
yeah,
universe that has all these synchronicities going on, all these things happening that pure randomness could not possibly explain. And it creates a wonderful feeling of wonder, of marveling at, whoa, how cool is that?
but
That to me is magic.
all these people that are intertwined and just happen to meet by coincidence. No, it's
Yeah,
no,
right.
no coincidence. There's no coincidence. There is no coincidence. There can't be. It's just like when you meet somebody that you've attracted, or they've attracted you, vice versa, whichever. You can you can just feel that it's right, and it you like you say, you get that feeling of wonder, don't you? Like, how has this happened? It's just
It's
amazing.
wonder and it's excitement. It's like thrilling. That to me is magic. Magic is where everything is just feeling so cool. Like, oh wow, this is great. Is this great or what?
It
That's
still
magic.
blows me away, even though I understand the majority of it, and I'm never going to say I understand it all because I don't think you ever can. But I understand how it works for me. But every time it does work, I still get that feeling of being
Yeah,
absolutely 100% blown away, which
absolutely.
is, I suppose, is what you're describing as then the magic. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
so
sense.
I actually don't need a magic wand. I have a magic wand. It's the entire
You are
world.
one. Yeah,
Wonderful. Yeah,
we are our own ones, in effect,
yes,
aren't we?
we are, sure. Yeah, that's true. Hey, there's something I wanted to bring up with you, actually. I had an exchange on Facebook with somebody went on a rant on one of the law of attraction groups in which they were using a lot of four-letter words and being very pissed off about the situation that they were dealing with. And I mean, they were just venting like crazy about this thing. And then in the midst of it, they were saying things like, I really do love myself, and I'm a very balanced person. And then they're going off on this crazy tangent, and I'm thinking, well, I don't think you realize what you're saying there. So I basically came back with a comment saying, well, if you really do feel that you are this balanced person, then you don't really care about this other situation. And
Yeah,
that set some people off. Like, oh no, you're being so condescending when you say that. I thought to myself, that's an interesting reaction. Telling the
yeah,
person the truth about what it is he's doing is condescending, which I don't think it is at all. I don't think I was being condescending. I was just simply telling him the truth.
yeah.
But I'm thinking, as a coach, you probably run into situations like that. Probably not where you're being accused of being condescending, but you run into situations where people are off on this thing, and you point out what they're doing, and it kind of shocks them a bit, and you
Yeah.
probably even get some pushback on that. How do you handle the pushback? What's your best way to deal with that?
I suppose the best way I deal with that, because it does, I won't say it does happen a lot, because I take them through a process
Mm,
first of all to get them to accept. This is the thing, getting them to accept 100% that they are in the present moment, right now, where they are, the sum of all the experiences that they've had, they've created them all up to this point. So, and also get them to accept that the stories, if you think about it, your subconscious mind runs on automated stories the majority of the time, which
mm,
will either be based in the past or worrying about the future. So
mm.
this person that you're talking about in the group, I'm assuming, was ranting about something that's happened that's upset them.
That's somebody who is treating them badly or something along that line.
Yeah. Yeah. So with me, it'd be about getting them to understand that the only common denominator in that situation, and the only thing that they can change, is themselves.
Yeah.
So, and it works really well. It works with your number one listener. Is it Nasha?
Nasha, sure.
Yeah, because remember the first podcast we did, and we spoke about
Probably she's on.
changing.
She listens to a lot of them, so I wouldn't be surprised if she was there. I honestly don't remember. They all kind of blur after a while.
See, I remember. I do remember things quite well. But she just switched the way she was behaving towards the situation, and then she got a different result.
Oh, right, yeah, with her family. I remember that. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a similar sort of situation with this one. I mean, I go down the route of, right, okay, so you can't change the situation. That's happened. It's done. It's finished. You're being upset about it now, but do you really need to be right now? Is it happening now? No, it's not.
That's a
Okay,
good
well
point.
let's get rid of that, and let's work out what we're going to do moving forward. How can you change yourself so that next time this similar situation arises, you handle it in a different way, so they have to change as well? Because if you change yourself to a different vibrational energy, as it were, you can't attract the same thing. It's impossible for the same thing to happen if you've
Right.
changed yourself.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the route I'd go down with that, I think.
That's
But
good. That's a good approach.
it is difficult. It is difficult on Facebook, when you type
Oh
something,
yeah,
because
yeah.
when you're writing things can get misinterpreted or read in a different
Oh,
way. So something that's supposed to sound happy and encouraging can come across as, if they read it in the wrong way, as aggressive and not. So it's the same with text messages, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. Because there's no context. There's no body language. There's no nonverbal cues of any kind. It's just the written word from the perspective of the person who was writing the written word, which may not be the same perspective as the person who's
Exactly.
reading the written word.
Exactly. So that's where the confusion and the disconnect comes in, which can cause
Absolutely.
all sorts of. But yeah,
Most of the time it doesn't happen. Just caught my attention this time. Like, whoa, did I say something? What did I do? And I realized, I guess I probably didn't. But it made me wonder what your approach is because that's a good opportunity to find out.
yeah, it's a good opportunity to turn it around and put. I think it's always worth putting it back onto the person that's
Absolutely.
complaining and asking them to analyze it
Yeah.
rather than telling them you're wrong or
Yeah.
you need to change the way you're doing it. It's for them to work out themselves and giving them the tools to stop, think, look at it,
Right.
and then be able to move forward. So
Right.
that's how I break that down rather than yeah.
I agree with you entirely. That's good. So, okay. Oh, Deedre likes that too. Because if we change ourselves, there is no way we can track the same things. He's right. Exactly right. So let's see. What else can we attack as a problem today? What other questions can we bring up? Um, well, actually, there's another one I want to bring up. I actually sent out an email to all the co-hosts yesterday that touched on this, but I'll bring it up more indirectly, and that is stories. We are people, human beings are people who like stories. We respond well to stories. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in your coaching practice, to what extent do you rely on stories to help, present the points that you're making? Because, I mean, from my perspective, I think stories are the best way that we learn of anything, but I'm curious to know what your perspective is.
I use them a lot, absolutely, because it's it's easy to give an example, a real example of a real situation that somebody else has been in or been through, um, to explain an idea or a concept. So yeah, I use them. I try to think of a specific example. Can't think of a specific example right now, but yeah, I do use them all of the time. But it depends. Obviously, it's individual to each client, depending on what
Oh,
their
sure.
struggles are, their blockages and challenges are really. But yeah, definitely, it definitely helps to get the point across, and it makes it easier to explain the concept of something. So, for example, visualization. If that's something that they're struggling with, I'd give them an example of when I visualize something, then how thoughts have then turned into feelings, which is then
Mm,
helping to put the energy out into the universe. And it's about
right.
not visualization. Everyone gets hung up on the fact that it's if they hold a picture of a train or a car or a boat or whatever in their mind's eye, that it'll spontaneously turn up in their reality, which is not actually the case because unless you've got the feelings associated with it and around
Right.
it, it can't be real for you because it's just a picture. And I find, well, my example of this, when I used to visualize, I didn't do it in the way that I needed to. Whilst I was learning the stuff after I read The Secret, the pictures in my head that I used to visualize, which is really weird, and I don't think anybody else has ever said this. But I used to, if I would visualize a car, it'd always be like a cartoon or a drawing, a drawing of a car. I couldn't visualize the real thing, and I
Oh,
always
I
struggled
understand
with
that
that.
completely.
You get that, yeah?
Oh,
I thought it was
absolutely.
just
I've talked about that on the show. How I am really, for me, it's rough to try to create any kind of image in my mind. I mean, I'm lucky if I can get a color. That's how bad it is for me. And I realized within the last couple of years, particularly talking to my fellow co-hosts, many of which are life coaches like yourself, that it really doesn't matter so much what the image is or even how clear it is. What matters, like you're saying, is how do I feel about it? What's the experience of that thing that I'm imaging? And if I can get into the experience, it doesn't really matter if I can see it. What matters is what am I experiencing?
it's about expecting it to turn up and the feelings that would be there if it did. That's
Exactly.
the important. That is the
Yeah.
important part. Um, and well, I've spoken about physical anchoring before.
I don't know if I've talked about it with you. We have talked about it in the past, but it's been a while since we talked about anchoring, actually.
Yeah, because that's something that I use well daily.
We'll talk
Um,
about it. Explain first of all, explain what anchoring is, because like I said, it's been a while since we've talked about it.
yeah, well, physical anchoring. for me, is where you go and actually experience that you want to turn up in your reality. So, for example, the the, the Audi R8, I went and test drove the car. So I went to the dealership and went out with the sales guy and test drove the car so that I had a real feeling of what it was like to be in it, what it smelt like, what it felt like, what it was
Right.
like having people look at me driving down the road, and the feeling of pride that I got inside from that. What else? The acceleration when you put your foot down, the noise that it made, all these things that if I'd have visualized, I can visualize a picture of the car, but how can I put any feelings to actually having the car if I've never experienced being in it? Because I struggle with that. I can't say I can to a certain extent, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier if you've got something physical in your reality to anchor to. And that's why we call it physical anchoring, because you've anchored those feelings, thoughts, and processes into your subconscious because you've actually been and experienced the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when you're doing your visualization later on and working towards bringing it into reality, it's a lot easier to get those feelings back again because you've already had them once and you've experienced them once, if that makes sense.
I think so. And for me, I've always thought of anchoring as imprinting on my subconscious mind. So
Yeah.
basically creating a pattern in my subconscious of this is what X is like. This is what it feels like, it smells like, it tastes like. When I touch it, what it feels like when I touch it. What does it look like? What does it sound like? All that stuff, all built into this one little pattern that I'm imprinting on my subconscious mind. And when I imprint it, I'm basically giving myself the way to visualize it. Visualize is kind of like the generic term we use, but I like
Yeah.
experience better than visualize because visualize is one sense. Experience is all the senses. That's why I call it experiencing. And when I imprint it on my subconscious mind that way, I give myself a way to experience it over and over and over again. And when I do that, that's anchoring. That's just
Yeah.
reinforcing, reinforcing, reinforcing.
And then the more you do that, the more your subconscious allows it to become believable.
Right?
And
Mhm.
once it's believable, is generally when it will show up because
Yep.
now it's real and it can be in your reality and you've got no
Hmm.
blocks on it turning up. So
Right?
that's what I use all the time for everything really. Is
Mm.
physical anchoring. I'll go out and experience it. So, but a lot of people have got the fear around that because I work with clients that say, well, I want I want to buy a new yacht. That's one of my things that I've always wanted is a yacht. But they won't go in to a boatyard and speak to someone about buying one and experience sitting in it because they think, well, I haven't got the money to afford to go and buy one. So I'm scared of going in there because they might find out I haven't got the money.
Right?
I'm like, well, why would any sales guy come up and ask, can you just take me to the bank and show me how much money you've got in your bank? You'd never buy a boat from him, would you? You think
Not really.
imagine if you're a millionaire and he's asking if you've got enough money to buy it. Why would you be going there in the first place if you didn't?
Well, even more than that,
So
why dishonest is it dishonest to go look at a yacht when you don't have the money to buy it? What's dishonest about that? Because what's
nothing.
implicit in that claim that it's dishonest is the idea that if you don't have the money for something, you have no right to look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Well,
is
if you
not
have no
right,
right
is
to
it?
look at it, then well, most of the things in your life you don't have a right to look at. You don't have a right to look at any of the houses in your neighborhood. You don't have a right to look at any of the cars. So you're supposed to close your eyes whenever any of those things come by because you're not allowed to look at them.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's absolutely awesome. I love that. I'm going to steal that one. I'm going to
Right?
steal that one. I
Yeah.
like that.
And you should never ever look at a plane because you can't afford to buy a plane. So if a plane's
So you go to
flying,
the
go
airport
look,
holiday.
go look,
Yeah,
avert your
yeah.
eyes.
But that is how some people behave around these things, which is I think is quite sad, really. But once you get over that, you go out and experience all these abundant things. Abundance then becomes part of your everyday feelings, and you understand what it's like to be abundant, which then makes it easier for you to anchor into that and then create that abundance for yourself.
Hmm.
This is one of the things that people tend to struggle with because they won't push themselves outside of the comfort zone because it'll make them feel uncomfortable going and doing that. But I say, if you're always living within your comfort zone, you're not growing. You are not growing as an individual, and you never will. So push outside it. Have we had any questions yet?
No, a lot of comments. Diedre's commenting like crazy, but no real questions coming out yet. Diedre likes the questions we're raising, so that's good. We're on the right track. That's
That's good. Fantastic.
I was going to, let's see, I had a question, I lost it. Um, I was going to bring up something along the line we were just talking about. Oh, no, it wasn't a question. I was going to make another comment about anchoring, going out and experiencing things. For people who are feeling that level of discomfort, what I like to recommend is what Louise and I do. We will go look at houses that are slightly outside of our price range. Not tremendously. Well, actually, now we look at almost anything. But when we first started, we would look at something that was just a little more expensive than we could really afford.
Yeah.
Not with the intention of buying it, with the intention of anchoring to it. And
Yeah.
that way, it was like we were kind of like, we're pushing the boundary a little bit. We weren't trampling it. You know, we were just kind of pushing it a little bit, like, okay, well, maybe if we can talk them down on the price, then it comes into our price range, so now I'm justified, that kind of thing. And in so doing, the two of us actually would experience what this better looking house was. And then we just kept pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope, and higher prices until we were looking at $1 million houses. And
That's
it
what
didn't
it's
take
about.
long.
Because what you're doing there is what's called micro shifting. So you're micro shifting
Sure.
your subconscious. Yeah, that's the term that one of my good friends, Dan.
I hadn't heard that. That's good. I like that micro shifting.
Because what you're doing in effect is you can do it with when you're manifesting money as well. So I use it for money. Well, I start using it for money, and the amounts gradually go up. So it's all about starting with something that your subconscious can deal with and can work with. So, for example, if you think that it's quite possible that you could find 10 cents on the floor,
Hmm.
start with 10 cents. If you think that you can come across $100 bill on the floor, start with $100. Something that can be believable. Like if I couldn't start with $1 million being on the desk next to me, because I don't think my subconscious doesn't think that's possible. I can't manifest $1 million right here, right now. It's not gonna. I'm just gonna dismiss that. My subconscious will dismiss it. The belief system's not there, therefore I won't be in alignment with it, so it won't show up. So if you start with something that you found before. So for example, I don't know, you've put your jeans in the washing machine, you check your pocket, and there's a $5 bill in there.
Right.
Start with that and set an intention. Today, I intend and create $5 in an easy way to come to me in an easy way. That's an affirmation that I use quite often. And then just forget about it and just leave it and just expect that this money's going to turn up. It doesn't matter. Don't think about where it's coming from because that's not important, as we know. And then when it turns up, just celebrate the hell out of it as though you've won $1 million.
I like that.
And then gradually up the amount. So I started off, because I'm in England, I started off with £5 initially to begin with.
Right.
And then I went up to 10, and then I went up to 20. Then I went up to 50, I jumped up to 50. And that didn't work. I only got 30. So what
I only manifested 30 pounds out of thin air.
what that taught me was my subconscious edge right now is 30.
Right, right.
So what I did is I moved it back down to 30, did it at 30 again, celebrated it again. So my subconscious is going, oh, it's working, it's working, it's getting more and more. And gradually you start to believe that this process works, or your subconscious does. So it makes it more believable. And so eventually you can start taking bigger jumps. Then you'll drop back down a bit, and then another big jump, and then back down a bit, and eventually you're up at a stage where you can manifest whatever you want.
That's interesting, though, because what you're suggesting is that we can deliberately manifest specific amounts and get those specific amounts and use that as a sort of a ladder or a stepping stone. And I say that's interesting because in my experience, I've really never been very good at getting exact amounts. I can get more or less, but almost never the exact amount. You're talking about getting the exact amount. I'm about to ask you, how do you do that?
No, not getting the exact amount. sorry, I've missed a piece out. What the affirmation normally says is $20 or more.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So sometimes it'll be less. I'm not saying I get exactly the right amount every time. Sometimes I'll get less than it. So if I'll set the intention at $10, I might get 5 or 7.50 or whatever. But I'll still celebrate it like I've got $1 million. So every time you're celebrating, this is coming back to celebrating that we were talking about on Thursday.
Hmm.
With Drew. Every time you celebrate something in a way that makes you feel awesome, your
Mm,
subconscious likes those nice, happy chemicals that are in your body.
absolutely.
So it gets used to this being a good thing,
Yeah.
which makes it more believable again. So it's about small baby micro shifts or steps, whatever you want to call them, and then celebrating each time you have that breakthrough, so that your subconscious starts going, like this. Yeah, that's good. It's working. It's brilliant. It's getting, and you just keep going. You just keep going. But it is a practice that takes time. I mean, it took me 6 years to get to where I am now, where I can manifest. I set an intention. Well, the last one I set was for £200
Uh,
recently. I don't do massive amount all the time because they're still not that believable for me. Because
yeah.
I've sort of got to you find where it's comfortable for you, um, but then I'll start pushing it again until I get stuck, and then I'll come back down. So my current one, £200. I set that last week, and that's already come in from new coaching clients that I wasn't expecting that
Mm,
pay me monthly to work with me.
great.
Um, I've not been out there and advertised. I've not done any work to get those. They've just contacted me,
Yeah.
which is awesome. So it does work, but it's about practice, which I think I struggle with practice because I'll do something for a while and then I'll stop because it'll work and then I'll stop and I'm like, it's working this, and then I'll forget about it for a while and then I'll have to start again. Because I think we all do that.
Well,
I think we all,
yeah.
you've got to be disciplined with it. You've got to be disciplined with it.
Hmm. I think it's a very good point. Um, you also mentioned the idea of 20 pounds or more, or $20 or more. And it occurs to me it can actually end up being less, but that's still something worth celebrating. The example that comes to my mind is from the movie The Secret, where Jack Canfield, the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, was challenged by his mentor, W. Clement Stone, to set a really, really high goal that it was far beyond anything he could think of that he could possibly manifest. At the time, he was making about $8,000, $8,500 a year. And so he set a goal of making $100,000 for the year. And he had no idea how he was going to do it. And he had no $100,000 or $1 million ideas come to him for quite some time until one day he realized he'd written this book and was thinking, well, if I could get 400,000 people to buy a copy of the book and I get a 25-cent royalty on it, that would be $100,000. Problem was he had no idea how to sell 400,000 copies of the book. So anyway, he tells this long story about how he meets this writer from the National Enquirer, and she writes this article about him, and it leads to a whole bunch of stuff. And at the end of the year, did he make $100,000? No, he made $92,375. Was he disappointed? Absolutely not. He was ecstatic.
Yeah, of course not. You're really not going to be disappointed with that, are you? So yeah, celebrating is a massive thing for me because, and I used to that used to be my main failing because I didn't celebrate. Um,
Too.
I'd manifest things, but I manifested it, but I didn't celebrate the fact that I had. I didn't get all way, all this stuff. But I do now. Everything that happens now, yeah, celebrate it because I know that then it's anchoring in again, isn't it? That it's a good thing that's happened and anchoring into your subconscious that that's what you should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. That celebration key is really key, isn't it? Because, like you say, that's where we write it onto the hard disk of our subconscious mind. That's where we make it a permanent record. And we should be doing more along that line. I mean, you can do it with money. Are there other ways that you imprint on your mind, feel good, feel good, feel good about all these things that are going on in your life?
Um, well, the mirror exercise that you talked about,
Hmm.
again, that's something that I'll do for a while and then stop. And then, I'll remember, hang on a minute, I've not been doing that for a while, and I'm not feeling as good. And these little voices in the back of my head have come back, like you were mentioning, because it does. If you stop practicing these things, this is what it's all. It's all about commitment, a commitment to changing. Because there are all sorts of different clearing tools and affirmation tools. This money game thing that I've just mentioned. There's all sorts of different tools that you can use, but if you only use them once, it's not going to work. You've got to keep going and keep going and keep going, and that's why most people I think fail and fall back down to, they'll do something that'll work once and then they'll stop,
Right.
and then they'll
And I
complain
noticed
that it's
that
not working.
because
Yeah,
I
and
did
then
the
they'll
mirror
complain.
exercises for about 45, 50 days, got a good result out of it, and then stopped. And then after a few months, I realized, why did I stop? That was
Yeah,
dumb. And then, so I went back to him eventually. It took me a while to go back to him, but now I'm doing him every day again. And like once you've got something good going like that, you keep using it because that's where you're going to get the most benefit. We actually have a question and it's from Diedre actually. She says, "I have a question. I played the lottery. It was a cheap scratch off. I played it twice in my life. I won very small amounts, but never went to collect the money. Am I telling the universe that I don't appreciate the wins?"
good question.
Isn't that really good? I've never heard that one before.
I think probably yes. Probably yes, you are, because you've not acknowledged that you've won,
Hmm.
and celebrated it. If you've won a small amount, another thing you can do as well, which works brilliantly, if you, well, in fact, I'm going to ask you a question, see if you come back with what I've got in my head. So, if you're feeling abundant, what do you generally do?
You're asking me or you're asking Dee?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
You're asking me. What do I do? If I'm feeling abundant, I try to remember, and I usually am pretty good at this now. I try to remember to celebrate, like you were talking about. I try to find some way to say, "Wahoo! This is so cool! This abundance. I'm loving it."
What else? There's something else that you can do that's
Abundance,
that
just
to the
I'm not
universe
sure
that
what
you're
you're
abundant.
driving at. I'm not sure what you're driving at. I mean, I just try to milk it as much as I can.
No worries. Well, what it is give it away. So if you've won, it's a small amount that really you obviously don't need it, DD, because you didn't go and collect it. But I would go and collect it and I'd celebrate winning it, but then I'd give it away to charity or give it away to somebody else,
Oh, I
and
see
then
what you're saying.
that's affirming with the universe that you don't actually you've won it, but you've given it away, so therefore you are abundant. It'll make you feel abundant, but it'll also make you feel grateful that you've won it and being able to give it away. So it's all about gratitude, feeling abundant, and giving as well. So you've got
Mhm.
all three things that are going to lift your vibration up all in one, all in one hit in effect.
Talk about the giving aspect because that is one that, first of all, can seem counterintuitive, and second
Yes,
of
it can.
all, it doesn't get a lot of attention. Why give the money or why give any? It doesn't even have to be money. Why give? What's the importance of giving?
The importance of giving for me is when you do it, when you give something away that through, and you're not expecting anything back. That's the key as well. So you're not giving something to somebody in return for something else. That's not how it works. So, for example, I'll give you an example. I manifested that £200 this week into my bank. So after that, I celebrated it. I celebrated the hell out of it, and we were clearing the house out. And I found under my son's bed lots of boxes of stock from a business that my wife was running about a year ago that we just never bothered putting back on eBay and selling, which we just didn't have the time to do it. So I've got a friend not who's was struggling a little bit.
Mhm.
Well, not struggling a little bit, but was looking for a way to make some money online that wouldn't take too much effort.
Mhm.
So I just gave away £265 worth of stock to her and explained how to do it and sell it. So she's gone off and done that. She's made some money now. She can start building her business. So that, in effect, that made me feel good that I've helped somebody else out. I'm not
Yeah.
expecting anything back. Not that's not what it's about. But I've made the universe think. Well, hang on a minute. I've put energy out into the universe saying I've got enough to give away. So it's going to give me more to give away and some more to give away. That's the idea. So it's going to bring more abundance into my reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Because I always give away to, well, I work with this charity anyway. So over the course of the next year, I'll give 20% of what I bring in to charities. I do that as a matter of course now. I'll just give 20% away of what I get to charity, because not because I want to get recognition for that, because some of the charities don't know I'm giving them the money. It's anonymous. Um, so, but I can't explain this very well. I've lost my train of thought. So every time I do that, it makes me feel like I've got more than I have.
Yes.
I get the emotions of having more than I've got because I'm able to do that.
I'd recommend maybe making one adjustment in the way you're saying it, which is you were saying, I don't expect anything back, but you actually do expect something back. What you expect back is that good feeling.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah,
instead of expecting something tangible back, what you're expecting is to feel good. What you're expecting is to have this jolt of positive, abundant energy coming back to you. And that's the part you really do want.
that's the part
That's
you
why
really
you're
do
doing
want.
it in the first place. That's why you're giving, right? To get that feeling of like, oh, I just helped somebody. That feels so
So in
good.
a way, yeah. So in a way, it is for selfish reasons if you look at it like that. But it's not, because I'm not getting anything physical, money, tangible back. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, eventually I will.
Yeah,
So, but it's difficult, isn't it? I know what you
well,
mean about it being counterintuitive, because
yeah,
when I first started, yeah, I've always given from even when I didn't have a job and I was living on my granddad's sofa. I had no money. If I saw somebody that was in need, I'd always give,
mm,
always. That means that feeling that you get outweighs the loss that you've had, always for me. And I think that's the important point, because the feeling of well-being that you get, and the feeling of uplift, because it's your vibration. You can feel your vibration increase as you do it.
right.
That's what's addictive. And it being counterintuitive, it's only counterintuitive if you're coming from a place of lack or greed, in my opinion, because
I
you've
agree with
got.
that. I don't buy into the idea of greed.
Mhm.
I don't think greed actually means anything. I know that sounds
Well,
very controversial, but um, the thing
you
that I've
like
noticed
controversy.
about the word greed is that greed is a label that is applied by somebody else who doesn't approve of you.
Yeah, good point.
You never describe yourself. I'm so greedy. Well, some people do that. They have sort of a self-effacing thing that they're doing because they've learned it from the other people who are saying, "Well, you're so greedy." But the people who are saying you're so greedy, what they're really saying, and this is where I love the Abraham quote. I quote this one a lot. Their quote
Go on.
about disapproval. Have you heard that one?
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
the
yeah,
disapproval quote. How their disapproval is their lack, not my lack.
yeah. Chance.
And my disapproval of them, similarly, is my lack, not theirs. So anytime that we're pointing the finger at somebody else or somebody's pointing the finger at us, it's the finger pointer who's lacking, not the person they're pointing at.
Although saying that, I let's analyze this. Let's dig into this a bit,
Okay.
because in the past, I would consider myself as being greedy and not wanting to give something away because of where my mindset was at that point in time. So I'd want to hang on to something rather than allow it to go to somebody else.
Is that
Not
greed or is
anymore.
that fear?
Yeah, yeah, it could be, couldn't it? There's
Yeah.
fear of losing something and
Fear
not
of scarcity.
having it anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's different. You're right. Yeah, yeah. Because greed, that's good. Is that? I like that. Yeah, greed is it's always from outside, isn't it?
It is.
Because
It's
you,
finger
you
pointing.
go to somebody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes
I
sense. Yeah,
disapprove of your choice. That's what it always
yeah.
is. I disapprove of you. The classic example, and I'll probably rub some people's noses out of joint on this one, but Classic example is Charles Dickens in A Christmas Carol. Scrooge was a greedy miser. That's the way he's portrayed by Dickens. I ask myself, does the character that Dickens portrays, does that actually represent any real human beings? Have I ever known anybody who go around, feeling grateful that they can take people's homes by, pushing them to the limit on their rent so they can't pay the rent anymore and going, ha, 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 Simon Legree, I'm going to take their houses from them. I mean, really? Are there people like that?
Well,
There probably are, but I can't say I've ever known any of them.
no, I haven't either. I mean, it's a bit of to be honest, doing that would be you're doing a disservice to yourself because now you've no longer
Absolutely.
got a tenant, so you're going to lose money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's just
Not only do
it's
you
a
have
bit
no
nonsense.
longer a tenant, you no longer have self-respect.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me about. I mean, there are people we know just from the news. We know there are people who will do anything they can to deceive or chisel or steal or in any legal way that they can take something that doesn't belong to them and say, "Oh, I'm so smart" and so forth. Are they really happy? I don't get the
Probably.
impression that they're real happy. They're trying to convince the world that they're happy, but they certainly don't look happy. They don't act happy. So
Exactly.
I don't really buy it. I don't buy that whole thing of Simon Legree. It just doesn't make sense to me.
That's it. If you actually look, I mean, social media is brilliant, and the stuff that we get to do together on here is brilliant because you get to connect with so many people, and I mean people from all over the world. I know people I've got contacts now in the Middle East. I've got contacts in America, in South America,
Yeah,
Africa, all over the world, and
yeah.
I haven't spoken to one person that I think was evil, nasty, or had
No,
something bad to do to me or any you know um, wrong intentions. Everybody just wants to be as happy as they can possibly be in the
yeah,
place they are right now. So when you think about the world like that, it's actually quite a nice place, isn't it?
it really is. Absolutely. I agree with you completely. That's one of those things that we can celebrate the abundance of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's not. Well, I mean, you said you made the mistake of watching the news the other day, and I think
Yes,
that
I
is
do.
very much.
I do that
I
more
think
often than I like to admit, actually.
it is, you've hit the nail on the head. It is a mistake
It
watching
is.
the news.
Absolutely, it's a mistake.
Yeah, we've got a TV in our house, and it very rarely turns on. If it does turn on, it's only to watch a movie, and that's it. But we don't have any form of other terrestrial TV. We've cut the wire, so we don't have it. Um, because I think it just lowers your vibration. If
Oh, it
you
does.
every time you watch it, you just sit there and you just all of a sudden you just feel sad because it's there's never any good news really, is there? It's always
This may
bad news.
sound strange, but I have I can't say they're necessarily reasons, but they're what I call reasons, I guess. Two reasons primarily why I will occasionally check the news. One is very often I can find something to laugh at
Yeah,
because
yeah,
let's
yeah.
be honest, a lot of it is just farce. It really is. So
That's
that's
good.
one reason.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
other reason is to strengthen myself
yeah.
because I certainly don't want to do what you were just describing. What you were describing, yeah, that's the worst, where you just you're watching this thing, you're getting sadder and sadder and more upset and more upset. Definitely not where I go. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in that at all. I will limit
Uh,
myself. Usually, I limit myself to about 10 seconds scanning headlines, and that's about all I'll do. Um,
well,
and in fact, yesterday I found a cool headline doing that. But most of the time, and this is my second reason. My second reason is I was a political science major in school.
yeah,
And
yeah,
as sick as this is, I am fascinated by politics. Politics is
yeah.
probably the most dysfunctional thing on the face of the earth, but I'm fascinated by it. And it's kind of like my wife. She's a former psychotherapist. So what does she do? She watches television shows in order to dissect the dysfunctionality of the characters.
Brilliant. But yeah, no. Well, I do that out in public.
You can do it anywhere. It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if I sat and watched the news, I wouldn't feel sad because I understand what it's there and what it's doing.
Yeah.
And but
Mhm.
but I was coming from a place where people that do watch it all the time, it can get you into this spiral
Oh,
of
yes.
thinking that everything's just really not nice. which is completely wrong. It's not the case. Get out there, experience the world, and you'll see how wonderful it actually is. That's the
Oh,
point.
yeah. And
That is
if
the
you are
point.
going to look at the headlines, don't spend more than a few minutes on it. Don't delve in and start reading all the articles. That's poison. You just don't do that. It's not even necessary anymore. That's the other thing. News, the way news is written today, they never write the entire article all at once. The article is
No.
written over time, so they find one little bit of information, then they add it onto the rest, and all the rest of it becomes the rest of the article. So you don't actually have to read the article. All you have to do is just see the headline. Like, oh, okay, I got it. There's nothing else new in there. It's just the headline, and I'm done.
But politics, I don't want to go down politics. No, we won't do that.
No,
We won't go down.
politics is definitely toxic. It's a negative sum game. It's not worth exploring. I still don't know why I have such a fascination with it. I think it's because I just want to understand why people are so negative. I think that's why I wanted it from the very beginning. I wanted to understand why are they so, caught up in this craziness. And that's why I wanted to study it. Now I understand to some extent. I don't think I've totally figured it out why they want to crawl into the craziness. The best explanation I got came from Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham
Well,
teaches us that we came here in order to experience the contrast. I said, oh, well, there's a legitimate reason for crawling around in all the muck.
you need the negative and the positive, don't you?
You need both so you can make your decisions and set off your rocks of desire. Like, oh, well, yeah. They never taught me that in school. I can tell you that.
Yeah, to be honest, they don't teach us a lot in school, really, do they?
No, they really don't. It's quite discouraging how much money you put out to get so little back.
Yeah, there's not a lot in there about life and how to live it, is there?
Not really, no. That's funny though.
But hopefully that'll change in time.
Dee Dee's asking an interesting question. She says, Walt, have you ever seen the show called American Greed? I think of Bernie Madoff when I think of greed. Bernie Madoff with my money. That was a joke. Actually, I have a different take on Bernie Madoff than most people have. I mean, clearly he was a thief and a con artist. And, he got basically what he was asking for. He ended up in prison. And but the thing about Bernie is I felt really sorry for him. And I know that's not the way most people think about it, but he got himself into a trap in the 1930s of running this little thing, this little Ponzi scheme, and it kept growing and growing, and he didn't know how to stop it. And so he lived the rest of his life. It sounds on the surface like he lived the rest of his life in luxury and everything was wonderful, but he constantly had this thing he was dealing with all the time of this Ponzi scheme that kept growing, and he knew it was wrong. He knew he couldn't stop it, and he had to constantly live with that. That to me is a pretty unpleasant prospect. So I kind of feel sorry for him. I certainly feel sorry for his victims. His victims all got, taken to the cleaners, but I feel sorry for him too. Look what he put himself through.
When you put it like that, it's
And
not.
yet there's another way to look at it, which is he chose to do that. He chose to put himself through that. So why am I feeling sorry for him?
But he could have stopped it at any
Look what
point
he
he
did
wanted
with
to,
that.
couldn't he?
He
Yeah,
could
he
have,
could have
yeah.
stopped it.
It
He just
would have
chose
been
not to.
prison, which is actually what he ended up doing anyway. He just put it off longer.
Yeah.
It's like peeling off the Band-Aid. He insisted on doing it one hair at a time. You know?
Yeah. That's pretty. You've got away with words.
Yeah, right.
Poor guy.
Perhaps feeling sorry for him wasn't exactly my best move. Maybe my better move would be to say, well, that's really interesting. I wonder why he chose to be such a masochist.
This is it. It's all about perspective, isn't it? It's all
It
about the
really is.
perspective that you look at things. Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
You can have sort
Typical.
of, we've never run out of time, haven't we? You can have five people in a room looking at the same thing and they'll all see something completely different.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
It's amazing. I mean, we all assume that, oh no, everybody's seeing it the way I'm seeing it, but no, that's really not the way they're seeing it necessarily. In fact, more often than not, they're not seeing it the way that in fact, if we
Yeah,
find somebody who's seeing it the same way, it's a miracle.
it is, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
like you and I look at it the same way. Like, oh my God, we actually saw it the same way. Who would have guessed that?
It's
Oh,
yeah.
this is fun. This is fun stuff. Well, this has been good. I like the questions that we explored. Some questions we haven't talked about here in a while. Anchoring, that was really good. We haven't talked about that in ages. So thank you very much, and I look forward to having the next conversation with you on Thursday, right?
Thursday the Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, so okay, something to look forward to. So thank you very much. Thanks to our listeners who are live stream listeners as well, and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.